Hi, everybody. Brian Valerio, VP in the Proxy Solicitation Group at Alliance Advisors. And today I'm joined by Tom Ball, who's a Senior Vice President with me at Alliance Advisors, also in the Proxy Solicitation Group. Tom's one of the newest members of the team, so I was excited to get an opportunity to talk to him about some news that has come out this past week, some very important corporate governance news that I wanted to share with all of you. So, Tom, I'm sure a lot of our audience is aware, but can you walk us through the news about the Nasdaq announcement and provide some background as to what this new diversity push from Nasdaq means?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it was interesting. It started the week started in an interesting way. Nasdaq announced on December 1st they filed a proposal with the SEC to quote unquote advance diversity through new proposed listing standards. In making that announcement, the CEO of Nasdaq stated that, quote unquote, Nasdaq's purpose is to champion inclusive growth and prosperity to power stronger economies. So the bottom line is the new proposed listing requirement would require companies to have or explain why they don't have at least two diverse directors, including one who, quote unquote, self-identifies as female and one who self-identifies as either an unrepresented minority or LGBTQ+. And I think it's important to note that this is a comply or explain rule. So it's while it has teeth, it is a comply or explain rule. And by the way, foreign companies and smaller reporting companies would have additional flexibility in satisfying this requirement by having two female directors as opposed to female plus diversity.
Now, from my perspective, this seems like a monumental shift. This seems like a big shift. But this is also something that we have seen bubbling throughout the past year or so. Diversity at the board level and diversity through the workforce in general seems to be a hot topic and a hot button issue for a lot of the large institutional investors.
Absolutely.
Can you talk about that and provide some background? Because this didn't just come out of the blue. This is something that has been bubbling beneath the surface for a while now.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I totally agree. I mean, if you go back a number of years, large money managers such as BlackRock and State Street Global have been pushing for and promoting diversity on boards, especially females on boards. At a state level, state of California in 2000 passed a law that required publicly held companies that are headquartered in California to have at least one woman on the board by the end of 2019. And then there were other requirements depending on the size of the board. Most recently, California in 2020, in September, passed an additional law that required ethnic diversity, racial diversity, and sexual and gender identity diversity on the board. So they raised the level. And again, as you said, it's been bubbling up, and now we've gotten to the point where it's gotten to NASDAQ doing it. So we've gone from institutions to states, and now we've gone to a listing exchange.
The proxy advisory firms have weighed in on this. This was some of the recent updates from both ISS and Glass Lewis addressed board diversity and the desire to increase board diversity. So this is definitely something, while it seems like a big monumental shift, it's something that is going on not just with NASDAQ. NASDAQ is just the latest large financial entity that is delving into the increased push to increase the board diversity.
That's right. Yeah.
And there's been a lot of reaction to this since it's come out. I've seen a couple of op-eds or editorials from the Wall Street Journal that have talked about this. It seems as though there's been a bit of a mixed reviews of this proposal so far. What has been your impression of that?
I totally agree. Well, first of all, I think it's gotten a tremendous amount of coverage. It's front page news, at least front business page news. And I think that will continue because this is a seismic shift, I think. I think the Wall Street Journal has not been very kind to NASDAQ. Yesterday, they quoted, they said that in the editorial board said, with all the ways for businesses to raise capital nowadays, listing on US exchanges has lost much of its appeal. Enter NASDAQ on Tuesday with a proposal that makes itself even less competitive. And then the journal doubled down today to say the more we think about the new racial, gender, and LGBTQ mandates for corporate directors that Nasdaq announced on Tuesday, the more absurd it seems. And then they finished up by saying, Nasdaq is nuts. So
they didn't mince their words there, huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
But it doesn't seem like it's been universally receiving negative feedback. There's been some positive feedback as well. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I think the press coverage has been good overall. And again, a lot of press coverage. This is front page news.
Now, from my perspective, this is such an important change because it's probably going to lead to some companies looking at their boards and evaluating if they have the right mix of directors, both from gender as well as racial makeup. There's a lot of discussion that diverse boards ultimately lead to better decision making because there are more perspectives in the room. Why do you think this is going to be, and do you think this is going to be an important change? And if so, why?
Well, I do. I think, as you say, boards are going to have to look within, because again, this is explain or comply. So if you're not going to comply, explain. So the board is going to have to take a look at their own makeup, decide what they're going to do going forward. Are they going to comply? If not, why not? And this is really about disclosure, full disclosure. What's a company doing? And this can't be just a one-off conversation. It's going to be a whole board meeting talking about what's our board makeup? What are we doing going forward? What's our 1 year, 2 year, 3 year plan? So I think it will be, boards will be more introspective with regard to this.
I think this is something that companies should absolutely anticipate talking about with their large institutional investors going forward during off-season engagement calls. I think this is going to be something that you're going to have, even if the institution you're speaking with necessarily hasn't put out a policy on this, it's something that you're probably likely to come up during the discussion, particularly if you are one of those companies that doesn't have an overly diverse board. Would you agree with that?
I agree. Actually, I was talking to somebody yesterday, a large institutional investor who's in charge of their engagement, and he said every company that he's met with in the last year, the first thing they bring up is diversity. He doesn't have to bring it up; they bring it up. Mm-hmm. So companies are very aware of that, and companies need to know that they're going to be asked the question, or they should be upfront with their discussion.
So, what are the next steps for this proposal, and what does it look like in terms of being implemented?
Well, the SEC has to approve it, so that process can take a while. We've got a new administration coming in, so that's going to affect things. The makeup of the SEC is changing, so this may be delayed months, and we don't know what the new commission is going to consider important or not important. But well, certainly it's not a 2021 event in terms of the proxy season, but you could anticipate that it will be something companies need to focus on in 2022.
Well, thank you so much for your time. My key takeaway from this is that this is just yet another example of the emphasis on board and overall workforce diversity that is increasing on these public companies, and something that public companies really need to be mindful of and consider when they're evaluating their boards and trying to ensure that they have the right mix of skills and people on their boards to ensure that they are representing the shareholders in the best manner possible.
Totally agree. Very timely.
Great. Thank you so much, Tom.
Thanks, Brian. All right, bye.